Hey guys, Philosopher here, and today I've got the patch day reveal of the new Warriors team. We're going to have the full kits for Cloak and Dagger, their stats. I'm going to show you where they stack up to the other characters in the game. I will actually walk through the G13 Uniques for the entire team. It's something we're doing for the first time here. I'm going to be showing you gameplay video of the team, and I'm going to talk about where this team fits in the meta. So let's just take a look at the video right now. This is actually video of the team and what appears to be Doom Raid difficulty, 2 or 3, something like that. We've got everything in teal gear. You can see what that teal gear looks like. Everything is 6 red stars. This is the Mystic boss node here. And basically, they've got the full 3-person team with Doom and Surfer. One thing I'm just going to say is this team reminds me an awful lot of the Secret Avengers in a certain respect. It's a 3-piece team, 3-member team that is made for a particular set of Doom nodes. In this case, not the skill, but Mystic. Unlike skill, skill was something where we already were having a pretty easy time before Secret Avengers came out, even in difficulty 1. Now, Mystic can be a pain in the butt. I mean, it's not nearly as bad as Bio, but it's still not where you'd like it to be. It's certainly not where skill is at. So this is a team I think that a lot of people are going to be very happy with. Thanos and Ebony Maw are totally power crept. And this is a team you'll see here on, this is on, I guess, let's say difficulty 2. And this team absolutely makes mincemeat at gear tier 15 of this team. Look at these insane kind of attacks. Here's a team up here. Look at how much damage that does. It's absolutely insane. I mean, right now, there is some work you're doing early on to make sure you're managing Squirrel Girl and Doom, even in difficulty 1. Not really much management going on here. And like I said, it reminds me a lot of Secret Avengers. But I do want to say there's some bigger things going on here. Deathpool has already been revealed, and if you didn't check out the Strike Time video, you should probably check that out. One thing that I did notice there when I went back and looked is the stats for Deathpool. They're absolutely bonkers. And that was the one thing I didn't know. I'm like, okay, this kit is ridiculous. Top 3, top 5 characters, something in that range. When you look at the stats, it's similar. It reminds me of Kestrel. This may be a Kestrel 2.0 where, okay, Scopely's made a character. So since this is an original character, they're going to make that character absolutely absurd. And that's basically what they've done with Deathpool. So Deathpool is going to be absurd. Deathpool is going to be free to play, farmable in that event campaign, at least for people who are playing the game right now, not for the future, of course. So you're going to want to go all in and get the course on her. But these other 2 characters, Cloak and Dagger, are really important. And what they are going to be not only a key part of this new Warriors team for the Mystic nodes, but also they're going to be an important piece of City Dark Dimension. That's right. They are City characters, and I think they are, it looks to me like they very well may replace symbiotes, or at the very least be right there with symbiotes as options for Dark Dimension. Obviously, I can't be sure till I test it, but just by looking at the kits, that's what those 2 new characters look like for me. All right, let's go right back here and let's get right into the kits. Cloak is a Hero City Mystic controller. One thing is interesting, this is all about Mystic heroes. I find it interesting they don't do any Mystic villains. They don't want to help the new players get Phoenix with, let's say, villain Mystic controller. So here you have a City Mystic controller, new Warriors. Cloak, the basic applies assist to a random dagger ally. So they both have this. It reminds me a lot of like Proxima and Corvus, or Hawkeye and Black Widow, where they have that synergy back and forth. So Cloak and Dagger always attack together, which of course makes their attacks more powerful when they're paired up. Attack primary target for 300% damage and apply offense down. That's going to be a key mechanic for the team. You're going to see that Cloak in particular just does some amazing stuff with applying offense down. That's kind of like the gimmick of this team. When enemies get offense down, it really does some great stuff. So, this is just on the basic alone, applying offense down, which is pretty good. The special available turn 1, only 3 energy cost, so he's going to be able to do this a lot. Remember, this team's going to be getting ability energy from Death Pool, absurd kit there. So they're going to be, I don't think Cloak and Dagger will need to be using basics all that often. Clear all positive effects in the primary target, and attack for 300% damage, and apply slow for 2 turns, and defense down for 2 turns, and offense down for 2 turns. Wow, right? Power creep in the house. This is just absolute, once again, power creep is what we've got here. And you gain an assist at half damage from Dagger, which means, once again, you could have a real interaction. Let's just say, if you're going to do, let's say, Striker and Skirmisher, that sort of thing. Between the two of them, you can get that triple tap. You also have the opportunity of applying whatever the ISO. I don't know yet what the ISO attack is going to be on them, but it might be, for example, obviously there could be some bleed from Dagger. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right, now let's look at the ultimate Shadow Assault. This is also available turn 1, but a 5-turn cooldown. Attack all enemies for 280% damage, and apply 3 random negative effects from this list. Blind, defense down, disrupted, offense down, and slow. Now, I got to tell you, this, of course, reminds you of Moon Knight, but it is, I don't like the random RNG element to it, particularly in war. You really want to be able to count on your counter, so to speak. You want to be able to rely on it. I don't like this RNG element, but all of those are very, very good debuffs to have. And if you're going to have 3 out of 5, you have a decent shot of getting blind, which I think is probably the best one on this list. Then this is, and here's a big thing. These characters are the first ones that apply vulnerable. This is the ISO vulnerable. So up until now, you needed to, if you wanted vulnerable, you needed a Skirmisher, you needed a Striker. And this team, you do not need to have a Skirmisher or a Raider, in order to have vulnerable. You will get vulnerable from abilities. Very, very powerful. Obviously vulnerable gives 10% additional damage to that enemy, but more importantly, and of course, it enables those ISO attacks and interactions. And then if Dagger's an ally on the ultimate, also, you attack all enemies for 380% piercing, which ignores armor. Very, very powerful. And apply +1 offense down, up to a maximum of 5 to all enemies. As I've said, when enemies have offense down, that does some special things for the team. We'll look at it in just a minute. This is that insane attack we saw a moment ago in the clip where they just absolutely Cloak and Dagger decimated the entire enemy team. And there you go, that teaming up here, absolutely, that's, 660% damage, but 380% of that is piercing. And of course you get, this is with enemies who are facing these characters who, I think, already having offense up. We'll get to that later in the kits as well. All right, now let's look at the passive for Cloak, and this is big, 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 big. At the end of this character's turn, 50% chance to steal 5% health from the most injured enemy and all adjacent enemies and redistribute to self. Oh yeah, if Dagger's an ally, it always happens. So, health steal is such a big mechanic for Dark Dimension, because characters like Ghost or Phoenix or Ebony Maw, they have this health steal, and even if the enemy, if the enemy's got 1 million health or 2 million health, getting 10-15% of that from the enemies is just absolutely huge. But for those characters, usually you're doing it, let's say, to all enemies, but every 3 turns, 4 turns, 5 turns, 6 turns, whatever. This happens at the end of every turn. Every time Cloak takes a turn, Cloak is stealing, essentially, let's just say there's 3 enemies together. It could be 15% health, an enemy and the 2 next to him. Very powerful. Of course, it could just be 5 or 10% sometimes. But a very powerful ability because it's always on. It's going to happen every turn. Lifesteal is a big Dark Dimension mechanic. So I expect Cloak and Dagger as a 2-piece to be really powerful in city nodes. We haven't had characters that have been useful there other than symbiotes. Now that symbiotes are getting power crept, I think we can see Cloak and Dagger being very popular choices there. Although, of course, as I've said many times, I can't, until I test the characters myself, I don't want to recommend them. And then, in raids, when an enemy gains offense down, reduce the speed bar of that enemy by 15%. And here you go. This is big. I've said in other contexts, I've talked about these speed bar manipulation games and how key they are. So, some of the most powerful teams in Marvel Strike Force are based on this sort of speed bar manipulation, right? For the symbiotes, when the Carnage gives speed bar when the enemy gets low in health. X Factor, right? The reason they were kind of symbiotes on steroids and still are to some extent is because they give, because Longshot gives turn meter whenever there's a crit. The Axemen, whenever an enemy dies, they get turn meter. This is kind of the opposite, but it's effectively the same. In raids, when an enemy gains offense down, reduce the speed bar of that enemy by 15%. Well, think about that. If you have two characters, and let's say they're at, their speed bars at the same spot, whether I increase my speed bar by 15% or the enemy's speed bar goes down 15%, relatively we're in the same spot. So this effectively does the same thing, and it can make it really so these enemies don't gain a turn. So what's going to end up happening is you see all these abilities. Like, so if we go back here, right? If we go to the ultimate, they could be getting offense down on the first part of the ultimate and offense down on the second part of the ultimate. So they're going to, what is not stated in this ability is in raids, the enemy is going to get 15 to 30% reduction in turn meter on the ultimate. If you go to the special, they are going to get 15% turn meter resistance on, or 15% turn meter reduction on the special in raids. Basic in raids is going to reduce turn meter again, 15%. Just tons and tons of turn meter reduction in raids. So very, very powerful raid team. This is one of these teams that is going to be insane. For example, not just in the Doom raid, but I would also think, for example, in a city lane or something like that, in one of the Greek raids like the Alpha city lanes. This is just going to be an insane team there as well. Now, one thing I will note, Deathpool, of course, is cosmic, so you're going to have Cloak and Dagger. There'll be a 2-piece in city, both in Dark Dimension and in raid. So that's something to keep in mind there. All right. Cloak, also, by the way, more in the passive. This reads like a book. Cloak is 40% focus. If Dagger's an ally, gain another 30% focus, and Mystic Hero allies gain 40% focus. Just tons of focus on Cloak, and I will get to the stats later. You'll see why. Cloak basically is a character, is more of a squishy type character, like a Ghost, sort of, although, of course, all the stats are power crept, but has very high focus and resistance. You see here the dodge chance, 20% dodge chance, another 10% if Dagger's an ally, so 30% dodge chance. That's why I use that comparison to Ghost, but definitely, obviously, power crept stats compared to Ghost. And in raids, Cloak gets more damage, 15% damage, and gives 15% damage to the whole team. And when this character has offense up, which is going to be a lot, more on that later, gain 20% additional dodge chance. So literally, Cloak could be dodging 50% of the time, which is why you'll see why the health and all that isn't insane like some of the other characters. It's because this character is going to be dodging like crazy. I could also see Cloak being a character that's just super annoying on war defense, right? With all the dodge and so on and so forth. Now, of course, this here is in raids. The additional 20%, but still, you're going to get 30% of Cloak and Dagger together at 30% dodge. That can make this character, RNG fest, right? RNG fiesta. All right, let's talk about Dagger now. Hero, City, Mystic, Support, New Warrior. So here you got a support character, which is great from an ISO perspective. I feel like we always have a lot of support sitting around. The basic Piercing Light. Attack the primary target for 250% piercing and apply 2 bleed. This means this will likely be an ability you'll want a T4 to get that higher percentage multiplier or damage multiplier in the bleed. Apply 2 regeneration to the 2 most injured allies or self. and apply assist now on Cloak. So that once again, similar mechanic here. Cloak and Dagger will be attacking together, kind of like a Corvus Proxima thing. And then, a lot of damage here. 250% piercing and 2 bleed. Very, high damaging character for a support. The regen, of course, is the support element of that basic. All right, the special. 5-turn cooldown. So Dagger's a character. Obviously, you'll be getting the ability energy from Deathpool, but nonetheless, still will be using that basic a decent amount, doing the healing through those regens and so forth. But look at this special. Attack primary target for 320% piercing and clear all positive effects. All the piercing from Dagger obviously very, fits the theme with Dagger, being a knife, of course, but being piercing damage. But nonetheless, it's going to ignore armor, which is pretty significant stuff. And then chain to 4 adjacent targets for 290% piercing and on crit. Clear 3 random positive effects. Wow, right? Some people I'm sure will argue putting this character as Raider for that alone. I don't know if that's going to be the best move. This is also kind of a healing character, so healer is a good choice. Striker could be a good choice given the fact that there's going to be vulnerables being chucked around, let's say, from, we just saw, for example, in Cloak's kit, and this is a high damage character. And then, this special also clears heal block from the entire team and their Mystic Hero friends and heals allies for 20%. I mean, power creep in the house, right? This is very much, it reminds you of how Moondragon just has all these abilities, one over another after another. Despite being a healer, does a lot of other stuff. This is similar. High damage character, clearing positive effects, and healing all allies. 5 turns cooldown. All right, now let's look at the ultimate. Another 5-turn cooldown. This is available turn 2, so you're going to be doing special, then ultimate, then you're going to be stuck basicing unless you got Deathpool really, feeding you ability energy. Attack all enemies for 380% piercing and apply +1 offense down, which remember is going to reduce their turn meter up to a maximum of 5 to all enemies. And if Cloak is an ally, additionally, attack all enemies for 280% damage. This is another one of those sort of team-up ability things. And apply 3 random negative effects from this list. So this is very similar to that Cloak ability that we had. So, you're going to be getting tons of damage. This is 660% damage and all these negative effects, right? And, by the way, it also applies +1 vulnerable. So it's sort of, that mirror of the Cloak ability. Very, very powerful. You saw the damage it did in the video. Insane damage, plus all these negative effects and turn meter reduction because that +1 offense down. It could be +2 offense down. So it could have 15 to 30% turn meter reduction in raids. And, adding these vulnerables, very powerful. And it's going to make, let's say, if you've got a Deathpool who's a striker or you're using Dagger as a striker, even more damage coming out through those ISO attacks. And then the passive for Dagger. On spawn, apply 3 regen for 2 turns to self and all Mystic Hero allies. Just gives them, even more sustain. On turn, this is big. On turn, apply offense up to self and all adjacent allies. So this is absolutely big. Offense up is 50% additional damage. Remember, the enemy's getting offense down like crazy. So offense down is 50% damage reduction on the enemies. This is going to be 50% additional damage. So when you look at the numbers that I'm going to show you in a minute, the damage numbers, remember, they're going to be or they're going to be increased by 50% due to offense up. And that's huge. This is very much similar to the yo-yo kit, where the yo-yo puts offense down on every enemy. This is the inverse, putting offense up. Of course, we have that in the Secret Adventure team as well. The thing here is it's self and adjacent. So positioning is going to matter. You're going to want your big damagers next to Dagger. That's going to be part of the support she gives, is constantly giving offense up to your biggest damagers, who are going to presumably be next to her. Then on turn, 50% chance to gain evade. If Cloak is an ally, always gain evade. Talk about another super annoying character to try to target. I could just see Cloak and Dagger being a very, very annoying duo in war, for example. gain 50% resistance. If Cloak is an ally, gain 30% additional resistance. And Mystic Hero allies gain 50% resistance. Just absolutely insane amount of resistance for Cloak and Dagger. So very high focus resistance there. And in raids, gain 15% damage, and new warrior allies gain 15% damage. So, that's just in raids. It's going to make this team even better in a raid environment. All right. Now let's talk about the G13 Uniques. This is something I asked the devs for specifically because I said I constantly get questions about this when the new patch drops. Instead of having to data mine this or whatever to figure it out and put an announcement out, let's just get it out up front in the video. So Cerebro got this, and you're not going to like it. I'm going to tell you right now. So, you're not going to like the answers here. Cloak is a miasma character, which of course shares with, miasma is shared with a ton of other characters like, Doom and Hela and so forth. And then Dagger is fine. Tesseract energy, okay. And then you get ready for this. Deathpool is also miasma. So this is basically like symbiotes where we have this alien spores bottleneck, or for a short period of time there was also that same thing with the Dad Bros with Gravitonium. Now we have a miasma bottleneck. So start buying and your miasma whenever you see that in the supply store. Very annoying. I will say I am very annoyed that when I've raised these concerns about G13 Uniques to the devs, what the response is to put in more offers, and it created a artificial roadblock here on miasma. Very annoying and unfortunate. All right, let's look at the stats. And you'll just see, so Cloak stats are really good, but not absurd. So, some of them are pretty absurd. So remember, there's I think something like 170-something characters in the game. So to be, Cloak is above average in basically everything other than damage. And remember that Cloak is basically got 2 attacks every turn. In addition to the regular attack that Cloak does, there's that health steal. So if you had absurd damage on Cloak with the regular attack, with the health steal on top of it, it would just be insane, right? So you have to factor in that health steal, which is for the most injured enemy, which is fantastic, right? It's like automatically targeting, even if there's taunt or whatever, it's going to target that enemy. And then also adjacents, which could be multiple enemies. So that's really powerful. Then, fine, the armor, focus, resistance, all very high, 17th, 4th, and 9th, and we're looking, if you see here, look on this list, right? Characters like, his health is, a bit higher than Phyla-Vel's. His armor is higher than Maria Hill's. His focus is right under Moondragon's. His resistance is higher than Phyla-Vel's. His speed is tied with Anna Morlock and Captain Sam. So you've got a character above average in almost everything other than damage, and really when you count that passive is higher in damage. So basically power creep stats, and this is a character that dodges like crazy and is super in Dark Dimension. Just a kind of absurd character. Dagger, same thing. Absurd stats. 8th in health, 7th in damage, 92nd in armor. Not high in armor, but she gets evade every turn, right? So you got a character who's getting evade every turn. Going to be hard to kill despite the low armor, and humongous health pool, and going to be healing like crazy and doing a lot of other things. Cloak is going to be reducing turn meter. It's going to be pretty insane. Focus is high. Resistance is high. If you look at some of these key stats, health, damage, focus, resistance, basically almost top 10 in those 4 key stats. Speed, 54th tied with Moondragon. So very, very powerful overall. And I guess what I would just say about this team is, this team, even more so than Secret Avengers, looks like a team that, people ask me, can you skip this team or skip that team? I just think that's always bad. I think that's a silly question, and it's like a content creator thing, like skippable or, power creep. I think basically Deathpool, everyone's going to need to go hard on. It's going to be like Kestrel. You basically just spend your cores, do whatever you got to do, on that event energy. Get the Deathpool as high as you can. And for these characters, my guess is they'll be expensive, and you're going to want the duo if you use them. And they're going to do really well with Deathpool, and I think they're going to sell a lot of these characters because they're very powerful. And this power creep trend is continuing. These characters are basically going to make it so, I would expect for Doom difficulty 2 and 3 and so forth that you're going to need or want to have this team. It's going to be very, very painful for you if you don't have Cloak and Dagger to go with and Deathpool in Mystic. And you're probably, for future Dark Dimensions, going to want to have Cloak and Dagger and City. And that's just the reality of things. And it's where the game is going. I talked recently about this in terms of a soft reset of the game, or the great reset. And I think that's kind of where we're at. They are remaking Marvel Strike Force through these new characters. All right, guys. If you like this video, smash that like button. Subscribe to this channel. If you have comments, leave them below, or go to my Discord. That's linked below. Lots of great conversations there. And also check out my Twitch stream. I'll be streaming these new characters today on patch day, or the new character that we can unlock. I assume it's Deathpool, but I'm not sure. Whatever new character I can, I'll stream the unlock, bring the character up to max gear and ISO and T4 everything, and test it out. And, of course, do that Red Star opening as well.